Alright everyone, now it's time for the big news of the day, which comes around the New York Times. Apparently what happened is that some people running the New York Times don't actually like their editors very much. They were compared to dogs pissing on fire hydrants. That's number one. Number two, a bunch of the editors are going to be canned. That is, I guess they're trying to streamline things or something along those lines. They're actually having all the editors resubmit their applications so they can decide who stays and who goes. So you had an editorial room walkout where a bunch of employees said, screw this shit. We're being mistreated by this legacy media outlet, so we'll stage a walkout to show our solidarity with those who, unfortunately, are going to get fired. Now, on the one hand, I'm happy because it means the New York Times is downsizing. Supposedly, they're posting record sales in the wake of Trump's election. I doubt whether that's true. I doubt whether that's looking at the entire scope of the situation financially at the New York Times. Number two, it makes me happy because morale there is low. Number three, it makes me happy because it's evidence of what I said, which is the legacy media is dying. The New York Times sort of newsprint style approach, including their constant editorials, their sort of dry academic analysis, has been paired now with an element of yellow journalism that's unbecoming a group that wishes to call itself part of the press. It is. The press of the United States is anybody taking part in the activities of the press. You published a book, you're part of the press in that activity. You're making a blog, making a YouTube video, activities of the press. These nerds at the New York Times, along with their compatriots at CNN, Fox, and so forth, with their high-sounding degrees, which basically means, hey, I've got a piece of paper saying I'm roughly average. These individuals think that their shit doesn't stink and that they're better than everybody else and that they're the arbiters of truth. They're not. They're an ineffective, outdated, dinosaur legacy media that made sense only before the age of worldwide communication via the internet. That model no longer makes sense. That's why all these sites, they're pouring resources into trying to get online more. Now, this will probably work more for a cable firm like Fox or CNN, which has video-based content that can be streamed on YouTube, it can be put on Hulu, and Amazon, wherever it happens to be. Might work for them. They might hold out. Newsprint? Haha. Hell no. Not unless the New York Times is going to start a cable show. It's not going to work for them. They got their own site. They got their own write-ups. Not going to work. They'll get aggregated with everybody else. They'll be no different from any of these smaller alt media firms in another decade. The New York Times is dying. The death of the legacy media has metastasized to the New York Times, specifically because of the model they're trying to use. That is, on the one hand, they try to bring aboard a few conservatives. They piss off their far-left fan base. You know, they're from New York City. Yeah, I think the average person who reads their rag is probably a partisan Democrat, maybe even an actual liberal, although those two, at this point, seem mutually exclusive increasingly over time. They do that. And then they do this shit where they're demoralizing their own employees and probably pissing off even more of their readers. You know, they have some editor that they actually like. Oh, this person does a good job. You know, they're visible on these articles that I like. And they get canned. What are they going to do? They're going to stop reading the New York Times. Who buys newspapers anyway? It's just a way to commit tree genocide. It's stupid. Shouldn't even have newspapers in the country anymore. There shouldn't be any newspapers. You have some little bulletin or circular that's in just your small town sort of as a novelty. Okay, that's one thing, but who fucking reads the New York Times? Or USA Today or any of these other crazy outlets? It's just, you can get all of that information quicker online for free. You're paying for internet anyway, you're using it to entertain you, you're watching movies or listening to music. Why not get your news there too? What's the point of having a newspaper? You know what the average newspaper is today? Somebody has birds and they shred it up for bedding. Somebody read the cartoons and then threw the rest out. They mulched it up, put it in their compost pile after doing the crossword puzzle. That's what newspapers are. You're even weaker than the cable legacy media. The strongest of the legacy media groups is like radio, because people still listen to terrestrial radio on their drive or something. And even that's basically unlistenable. It's half commercials. Cable's the same. You look at a newspaper, and starting in the 1990s especially, the amount of advertisements as opposed to the amount of actual content continued to creep up and up and up. Even your local small town newspaper, what is it? It's probably got 4 or 5 pages of nonstop ads in it. That's all it is. It's a novelty, a relic of the 1800s. That's what newsprint is. So when I hear that they're demoralizing their employees, that their employees are walking out and they're going to can half of their editors, I laugh with glee. Because other people saw it, have begun to see it happening as well. It's no longer, I'm sitting here talking out my ass, supposedly, according to my critics, and saying that the legacy media's death knell has finally begun to approach. Now you see it for yourselves. Now people that were critical before, they're not smirking now, are they? No, they take it seriously. They see Fox News goes into heavy decline. All of a sudden, they're hemorrhaging support. CNN is on the ropes. They're getting pounded by scandals right now. The New York Times is beginning to show signs of strain. A bunch of these other groups, they're either declining in circulation or they, at the very least, can't make ends meet even if they are. So, it's great fun watching these groups decline. They're going to continue to decline, too. You may see for a while things at some of these outlets, by the way, another prediction, will stabilize. Because what will happen, like if, say, the New York Times were to collapse tomorrow, I'm not predicting that, but let's say it just went totally bankrupt and stopped existing. Other newsprint would begin to take up some of that support. It would buoy them up for a while. Every time one of these larger outlets dies or declines, other groups absorb some of that support back into themselves and strengthen themselves. But each time there is also a proportion that doesn't care about any other particular outlet. They have like brand loyalty. They jump ship to the internet when this happens. Some of Fox News' viewership has permanently left cable news and is now using the internet for their news instead. Even if it's like foxnews.com, they're still on the internet. If New York Times declines, some of those individuals will never buy another newspaper in their life. They only want the New York Times. They won't use another. They're not going to go to the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the Atlantic. They're not going to do that. That's why I archive all links when I link to these groups to try to deprive them of ad revenue. By the way, you should start doing that. I've noticed some of my fans still link me stuff on Twitter and wherever, and it's not archived. Use archive.is. Sometimes it's archive.fo for some reason. Like they change the extension there. I don't know why. I think they must have multiple servers or something, like maybe they have like redundancy and they have like one set of servers and then they switch it off and go to the other one or some. I don't know exactly how. I don't know what they're doing. Maybe they do that because of censorship laws or something. But yeah, the New York Times, this gargantuan behemoth of the old guard media, is now showing signs that even the employees there are pissed off. It eerily is reminiscent of Fox News, where apparently employees were concerned that sexual harassment was happening constantly. Or CNN, where employees say, it's the Russia story's bullshit. And by the way, a lot of people here are pissed off because we want to report other things. Isn't it sort of looking like all of these groups have the same fundamental problems? Yeah, that's because they're declining. Demoralization occurs. They try to go the clickbait route, and they kill themselves. They destroy themselves when they do that. And then they're gobbling up people who supposedly are ideologically opposed to their own message. MSNBC, NBC, gobbling up so-called conservatives. When NBC took Megyn Kelly on board, it was great fun. Here's someone who supposedly leans right, formerly works for Fox, now has to pretend continuously to be a centrist or something like that. This is fucking hilarious. It's wonderful to watch these groups cannibalize one another, too. They're going to do that increasingly as well. They'll start stabbing one another in the back for commercial purposes, and that'll be even funnier. When that comes, when they start going yellow journalism on one another, you know that the final death knell is approaching, and that'll be even more sweet. It's going to be so sweet. The moment that one of these large old guard media firms collapses outright, like just goes under completely, has to get absorbed or something, the moment that happens, it's going to be like 3 cheers for the world. I make a celebratory hour-long video where I just sit there chuckling and twitching for the entire period of time or something like that. because another propaganda outlet will have fallen. Now, these groups will try to seek to import propaganda to the internet. They're already doing that. But on the internet, the content is able to be interacted with, which poses a problem for them because people can actually comment on the material. They can actually point out why it's propaganda, why it's wrong, why it's shit, which is exactly what most of what these groups publish actually is. The New York Times is a piece of crap. The New York Times is literally fake news. Retracting all their fucking stories that they've been putting out regarding politics. CNN doing the same thing. Yeah, no wonder that people don't trust you as a so-called credible outlet to get your news. Yeah, not credible, not trustworthy. No more trustworthy than any random person on YouTube. Any random person with a blog. It's all equally trustworthy. There's no difference. The only difference is you have $1 million studio, so people perceive you as more trustworthy. You wear the $1,000 suit. It's projecting an image. It's pure propaganda. You project an image of credibility. Like you would project an image of whatever you're trying to project. You're running a business. You're trying to make money. You're trying to profit. You're trying to outdo your competitors. You try to project an image of your brand, which requires projecting an image as far as how things are delivered. Like, I'm well aware, I wear a leather jacket or an open shirt or whatever, and I sit here and talk. There are people who refuse to take me seriously because of that. But I don't want those people to watch my content because they're not gonna be able to derive much from it. It's not gonna happen. They actually care. If you want to see someone wearing a suit with the slicked back hair or the hair plugs and cap teeth and stuff, you tune into CNN or Fox, or you pay attention to whatever the idiots at the New York Times are saying. And they're idiots. They're running their own companies into the ground. And some people think that these are wise decisions that they're actually making. They're not wise. From a marketing standpoint, MSNBC gobbling up conservative pundits. They're trying to play a long game that they don't even need to be playing because there's no long game to play. Long game is legacy media continues to decline. Doesn't matter what you do, how much you outmaneuver the other groups. In fact, eliminating the competing legacy media firms might actually hasten the death overall, because then you have fewer outlets to choose from. You have less diversity of opinion, I think, on certain peripheral issues. And on politics, they're all aligned. They all agree Trump is evil, he's Hitler, globalism is great, multinational corporations are fine, warmongering's great, all these things. No, but some of the side issues, they at least have to pretend to have a difference of opinion once in a while. You won't have that anymore. They'll die off even faster. That's about all. Peace out.